Sandy and Nora's podcast.
Hey, Nora.
Hey, Sandy.
What's up? How's it going?
What's up? How's it going? I'm good. I'm in the middle of 2 trips. As people may remember, I was in Regina. I'm in Ottawa now. And so I feel a little bit chaotic, to be honest. I feel a little bit busy. And I guess when people listen to this episode, it'll be my birthday. So,
Hey,
Yeah.
That's always good. That's always fun.
it's nice.
Yeah, I know very well about what it is like to feel chaotic. As folks know, last week I was in New York, and then I went home for a day, and then I left for Sudbury, which, as a good friend of mine said, you know that Sudbury is way closer to New York, right? But it's just the way that things worked out. It just the first ticket couldn't be changed, and so I had to go back home, and I was just beside myself with kind of feeling all over the place. But I'm back home now, and I just have to say the event that I was in Sudbury for, which was organized by a coalition of community groups who were trying to encourage people to get involved in local politics, to give them the tools that they may need if they wanted to run for city council, to answer questions, to get people thinking about being involved in the local elections, even if they weren't running as community groups or just as concerned individuals. It was so great.
Aw.
It was such an amazing event. It was for something like this to happen in person too, because a lot of people will have events like this that people can sign up for as a webinar, but this was a very collaborative, in person and tactile in a way too, because they had a whole bunch of Post-it notes and ways to organize our thoughts and ways to have discussion. And it was really, really, really great. They held it at the public library. There was about 40 some people there, and there were some really, really great discussions about what people are frustrated about in their community and what they would want to see change. And it was really inspiring. And it made me really happy to see that this type of organizing is going on and that there's a lot of interest in it. And I hope they continue to do that kind of work. It was really, really exciting to see that happen. And I was so glad to be a part of it.
Can you share with us a little bit about some of the preoccupations people have within their community?
Oh, yeah. Potholes.
Yeah.
Potholes really came up. Potholes. Funding, too, for programs for youth, for programs for adults, too, what's going on with leisure in folks' communities. But also there was just frustration at the fact that there seems to be a political class of people who are allowed to be involved in politics. And that political class has no idea what it's like, as I think this is almost a direct quote, has no idea what it's like to ride the bus. And so that makes it very, very difficult for people who rely on the bus, who rely on public transportation, which was another really big thing that folks were talking about, to get that on the agenda as a priority. And so there was quite a bit of discussion about how actually the folks in this room are the experts in things like public transportation and funding for youth programs and the potholes that they're experiencing in certain parts of the city and not in other parts of the city. And they're more experts in that than this sort of political class of people who are assumed to have more knowledge or to just have better ideas of what kinds of policies need to happen and what needs to be the priority and what doesn't. And then, of course, corruption was a big issue that was talked about as well. But people really came away, I felt with this idea of yeah, I actually do know more about transportation, and I actually do know more about the pothole issues and the issues that we're seeing with infrastructure in the urban environment in Sudbury, rather than some of these people who have been elected year over year. And there was even some discussion about how the way that the city council is compensated makes it really difficult for people who are low income to get involved, because you kind of have to have a second job or just be independently wealthy in order to be on the city council. So there was lots of really, really great discussion that seemed to bring people together who had never met before and who were not part of like these organizations. There were a lot of people who were just walking in, and some people who were just in the library who were like, this is really great.
Wow.
Who are you guys? So that was really great.
That's amazing. And I'm sure people listening will hear many, many similar things to what their own communities are experiencing. And so it is so important to have these conversations and to then come up with action items, which I imagine was, the goal of the day or the goal of the discussion.
Absolutely. It really, really felt like something's really happening there. So kudos to the folks who organized that. Thank you to those of you who came out who were listeners. There were some people who were like, it's so weird to see you in person after listening to your voice for so long. And like Nora and I get that sometimes. So, thank you for those of you who came out. And, if you're organizing stuff like that in your city or thinking about it, just go ahead and do it. It's really, really critical to get people feeling like, you know what, I can take action. And sometimes things like these are all it takes.
That's absolutely right. So, wow, that's really great. And, people should keep us posted on this kind of organizing that is happening within their communities. I'm so disappointed at how no one with any like real resources, like access to like spaces and money and this kind of thing, have pulled together a national conversation on municipal politics and changing municipal politics. But it's so important that that happens as well within local communities too. So I love that.
Yeah, it's a really nice change from like... LA has had its mayoral elections. So, and, as I discussed last week, or the primaries for the mayoral elections that are happening later in the year. And as I discussed in the last episode, I can't vote here. So it's like I kind of mildly pay attention to what's going on because I still need to know what's going on in my community. And the fact that I just like America just keeps Americaning itself, the fact that this reality star, Spencer Pratt, who I guess wants to be like a local Trump, did so well is like, it's just like America is just like a full on comedy reality show. And it's weird to be a part of. It's weird to watch, but he will not be going forward in the primaries, which is, if you're paying attention to U.S. politics, Trump is like, it was rigged. But there is a Democratic socialist named Nithya Raman who is going forward, and Karen Bass, who's a Democrat who is also going forward as the top two mayoral candidates who will be up for election in the fall.
And that's actually like kind of amazing. So, of course, Spencer Pratt got a pretty significant amount of votes if those were the other two options, because there are right-wing shitheads in Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
And it's not too surprising that it takes someone like Spencer Pratt, who I don't really know his work, but I believe he was on The Hills and Laguna Beach or some sort of television like that. Anyway, what's that guy doing? Run for politics? Doesn't matter. He lost. That's great news. But we're not talking about LA politics today.
No,
or
we're
even
not.
Sudbury politics. No.
Nope. We are talking about Canadian politics. We're talking about two issues today. But before we get there, before I jump the gun, Nora, do we have anybody to thank?
We do. Thank you so much this week to Kristen, Mickey, Ian, Maz, and Johnny for your support. We couldn't do this without you, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody that supports us. And Sandy, we are now looking for a journalist, or maybe two if we can get more money, to help us out with some investigations.
We are. We also want to thank so much all of the folks who have contributed to our Chuffed campaign to fund a journalist or two to do some investigation into the harassment campaign that's been going on against journalists who've been trying to cover Israel and Israel's war crimes. And, you folks really showed out for us. We really appreciate it. We're at 7,700 right now raised, which confirms that we can move forward with hiring a journalist. Our goal is a little bit more than that, because that will give us the ability to hire 2 journalists, to one primary journalist and one assistant to really get this story done the way that it needs to. But we're so grateful for those of you who have contributed to that specific campaign.
Yes. So you can find out how to apply at our website under Come Work With Us. And we encourage everyone to check it out. If you're interested in applying and you've got any questions, you can ask us. But we're accepting applications at Sandy and Nora at protonmail.com.
Okay, Nora, what should we start with this week? We've got 2 pieces of news that we wanted to chat about. One is Canada's new massive AI strategy that was announced last week, and then also this editorial that was published in the Globe and Mail that is kind of like, hey, remember the mass graves that were referenced a few years back about Indigenous children who had been killed and buried at residential schools in unmarked graves? Yeah, sorry, we were not sure that ever happened, and so we're publishing that here. Oopsie. Those are 2 pretty big pieces of news that we wanted to bring. What should we start with? What do you think?
Let's start with the more important one in terms of like what matters more. Let's talk about the Globe and Mail entering into what many are calling, and I think fairly calling, genocide denial.
Yeah, what a piece in the Globe and Mail. I mean, it doesn't in the article say like a genocide hasn't happened in Canada, but it is certainly like an article that can only be written in like 2026. It's like one of those things that really is only possible given the time that we're in and the context that we're in. And it has been taken up by a lot of genocide deniers who would like to really to present a history of Canada that is a lie, that denies that a genocide has ever happened here. It takes this editorial piece and says, yeah, all those people who thought there was who were talking about a genocide in Canada never happened. So you can imagine some of the big names who've been talking about this, like right-wing media figures in Canada, who've said, there it is, there's the evidence that this was all just made up fervor that was happening in 2020 and had no basis in reality. Thank you, Globe and Mail, for making it clear.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It's just disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it's really important to kind of name a couple of things here. 2020, I mean, pretty much any time after 2010, there seems to be no understanding of history at all. And so everything that gets announced is like a new discovery, things that we never knew, all this stuff. And when the unmarked graves were announced as being discoveries, that's how it played out within mainstream media. Now, it was always very clear, if you followed the news closely, which I did, that first of all, they were talking about anomalies in the ground. So a lot of locations near residential schools contain anomalies in the ground. And a lot of communities were working with archaeologists and ground penetrating radar to figure out more so that there wasn't a situation where people were simply just digging up bodies, digging up graves, digging up unmarked graves, right? Because there's a question of respect, right? Obviously. But there's no secret that many thousands of children died within residential schools. And it's not a secret because we've had many studies on this. We've had the National Commission on Truth and Reconciliation heard from survivors. It poured over documents. This stuff is known. What isn't known, of course, is how many children died exactly. What isn't known necessarily is where people's final resting place was, because we've never actually properly reckoned with our history. And so for the Globe and Mail to have corrected the record from 2020, 6 years ago, because I'm not sure, like, that no one has produced a body is like so grotesque and so disgusting. And what I hate about this is that it really is getting picked up by the far right. I mean, the far and actually perhaps even closer to the center right. That it's very much like unless we see a body, we won't believe this. And that is just genocide denial. And you see that anywhere, everywhere, where there are political murders that happen and one side benefits from hiding what really happened, while the other side, which is usually the vast minority, the people who are the victims of what happened, have to deal with the consequences and the intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. It is like, as you say, so remarkable that this is like a piece that the editorial board decided, like, this is what needs to be published now in 2026. And I mean, it opens by saying, 5 years after the startling announcement that there were hundreds of possible unmarked graves, there has been no public confirmation of the discovery of any human remains. Like, okay, what? Like that's like the most important thing we need to put out as an editorial right now in 2026. Then it goes on to say, as you said, right? Here's another truth. 3,200 Indigenous children at least died at residential schools, according to a 2015 report. Okay. So what I'm sorry, what is the point of this article then? Well, the point, according to the final statement in the article, in the last sentence, it says Canadians are owed an explanation. An explanation of what? Canadians are owed
an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
We're owed an explanation.
Mm-hmm. Canadians are owed an explanation because politicians, lowered the flag and discussed these potential graves with no factual basis. Like, what are we talking about? Again, in the article, they admit that there is evidence that thousands of children were killed at residential schools. Right? It says Canadians are owed an explanation, but First Nations are owed a greater debt. Lasting reconciliation between Indigenous communities and the rest of Canada has barely begun, but that reconciliation must be founded on the truth, wherever it leads.
Oh my God. And what's the implication of that, Sandy? What are they actually saying there?
With wherever it leads, like, I think what they're trying to say, or what this says very clearly to me, is that there's a chance here that it just wasn't that bad. It just wasn't that bad. And we have to be open to a possible truth that perhaps there was no genocide, or perhaps it was like a really nice genocide. I don't know. It's like the same sort of shit that you hear from people who are like very, very willing to deny the horrors that was the transatlantic slave trade. Like, when people, like, black people were treated very nicely. It's like the same thing here. It's like, okay, children may have died, but the truth may be different than everything that we've talked about. Like, how dare these politicians speak about honoring the lives of these children who've died with no factual basis? Like, what are we talking about? What is going on? I am stunned I just wonder about what kind of conversation needed to happen for this to be the editorial. Like, someone must have been so frustrated about this. Someone must have been really, 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 like, their gears super grinded to think that people thought that this kind of thing could have happened in Canada, that they were trying to get the Globe and Mail to say, we we have to poke some holes in this idea that this ever happened in Canada. And that is just like, wow. I mean, it's 2026. What else could you be spending your time doing instead of fighting for this kind of thing to be written?
Well, but it's also like completely nuts. Like, if you acknowledge 3,200 children died in these schools, and you acknowledge that that's probably the low end, and you know the numbers I've heard as high as 10,000, right? So somewhere in between those two. Have we accounted for every one of those bodies? Do we know where the final resting place for every child that died within residential school is?
Of course not. Of course not.
No, we have no idea, actually. So what the hell is the Globe and Mail talking about? Like, the truth is that thousands of children died in these schools. That's the truth. And last time I checked, the job of the Globe and Mail was to document these truths. So has the Globe and Mail gone back in its own archives to see if there's any reporting about this in the 1910s or the 1950s or the 1890s? Like, where is the truth when it comes to Canada's national newspaper, which has been around for 100 plus years, admitting that there's thousands of dead children, and then ending an article suggesting that unmarked graves or abnormalities at the sites of former residential schools, which were never treated properly when a lot of them were just bulldozed down or had left empty, that the truth is going to somehow suggest that there were, no children that were killed, even though you, in the same article, acknowledged that there was 32 or 3,500 children killed. Like, do you know how many children that is? Like, that's an astronomical number.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like, I think the question that you ask, like, who thinks that this is the issue? This is, I think, a very important question, because genocide is on a lot of people's minds right now. Mm-hmm. And the Globe and Mail has consistently denied that what happened in Canada was a genocide. I mean, I think in 2022 they had an editorial that came out denying that there was a genocide related to Indigenous women. And they quoted Romeo Dallaire, who said, like, as a genocide guy, like, as I've seen real genocide in Rwanda. What happened in Canada is not genocide. Like, that's just such a classic bunch of genocide denial, because of course you look at what's happened in other countries, you have certain ways that you understand that happened, or maybe, as in the case of Dallaire, he saw it up front, and therefore it's just like not possible that happened in Canada because, he didn't see it, or, we can't be sure that there were unmarked graves at different residential schools. But it's like, we know that there were thousands of children that were killed. We know that. And that's the headline. Like, that's the headline. There's no correction to make in 2026 for 2020. The headline is thousands of children were killed in these schools. That is millions of descendants that had no chance of existing. That has ripped up communities. That has devastated parents and devastated siblings and devastated friends. Like, that is the headline. And then if you actually want to bring it into the contemporary, what is Canada continuing to do to cause harm? That is the headline. Mm-hmm. But the Globe and Mail is shadowboxing here, because what they are really doing is they're trying to downplay genocide in general, because they have no interest in talking about genocide in general in the world right now. There's no genocide in the world right now.
Yeah, like, the line in the article that says, reconciliation has barely begun, like that right there. Like, as you say, it's like, what are we, like, okay, so if that's the concern, and First Nations are owed more, right? Like, if that's the concern, then, like, why aren't you talking about that? Like, where's the discussion about that? Like, we've been talking about reconciliation, quote unquote, super scare quotes there, in this country for how long? Like, where is the article on the great failures? No, we've got to write an article that says when BC Premier John Horgan called the discovery of potential bodies a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, he had no way of knowing whether that was true. What? Like,
wow.
What? Like, how
unbelievable.
How dare they? Like, how could they? The other thing that this article does is it does cast suspicions on First Nations themselves by saying, like, Ottawa sent millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to do soil studies to find out more about what was going on, which, makes sense because in the article, they're like, we don't really know what's happening here. So, like, you should be happy about that. And they're like, we have no way of accounting for what happened with that money and what First Nations are doing with that. Like,
Wow.
It is so beyond the pale, like just genocide denial, but also it's absolutely a racist article in the way that it is written, and in whatever principles anybody has to bring forth an idea like this and to put pen to paper and to say that it is so important that it represents the opinion of the editorial board of the Globe and Mail. Like, wow, just stunning.
Yeah. It is stunning. And it's especially stunning given that, like, they could do research into how communities are using that money. Like, there's been articles nonstop for the last 6 years of different councils being set up, different ceremonies being held, different, archaeologists being on site and using ground penetrating radar. And that costs money. Like, this is not secret stuff, folks. This is racist propaganda at Canada's national magazine or newspaper, which is bad news because Canada's other national newspaper is also doing racist propaganda, but like even more hardcorely on the front page. So like we're kind of in a bad spot right now when it comes to mainstream news in this country.
Speaking of which, the coverage of the AI strategy is mighty interesting as well. But I will say that there was, I mean, we'll talk about the AI strategy broadly, but there was an interview that Jamie Poisson with Minister for AI, Evan Solomon, on Front Burner that is just so revealing. I think Jamie Poisson did a really great job. Did you listen to it?
I didn't get a chance to, no, but I'm loving listening about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like the AI strategy, and I guess, like I said, we'll get more into this. It really is just like an exercise in Canada doesn't want to miss out. Like, how much money can we spend to be involved in AI, to like do the AI thing? Let's go. Let's get into the AI. We do not want to miss out. It almost seems as though Canada is, I don't know, a business that is like really looking to invest. Like, that's what it really feels like. And Jamie Poisson is like, okay, so there's been all of these concerns about like how this is going to take away jobs, how this is going to be like bad for the economy, how this might affect people economically and socially. Like, feels like that should be also a part of an AI strategy, like from the government. Like, what are you guys doing about that? And then Evan Solomon's like, we're looking at that. We're really looking at that, Jamie. I'm not gonna like, and she's like, yeah, but there's like no details. And he's like, yeah, we don't have details yet. We don't have details yet because we're gonna like, we're gonna to pass legislation, and that requires a proper discussion in the House. Like, that's where it belongs. And she's like, but sorry, you've got like details about like everything else. And he's like, Jamie, like, I know you're really focused on this, but like, we want AI for all. Like, we're really focused on AI for all. She's like, I just feel like there should be some work done about some of the concerns that like everybody around the world seems to have about this whole thing. And he's like, Jamie, you're really focused on this, but have you seen how like, this is going to be AI for all, like for all. We're just like, we're going to create jobs. And she's like, on and on, just like, I need you to tell people who are listening here, who are concerned, that the government is literally at least thinking about this. And there is just nothing there, Nora. There's nothing there. It seems all pretty bad.
Did you see how many jobs they're promising to create from this strategy?
I think it's 250,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
Which is like, what?
It's like, yeah, we're just making stuff up now. we're going to make 200,000 new jobs through AI, but like definitely only 100,000 people are going to come back to Canada now that anyone that has an ancestor that can say that they're Canadian can get Canadian citizenship.
Listen to last week's episode if you don't know what Nora is referring to there. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, part of those jobs is like they're like funneling a bunch of this money into like youth summer jobs.
Oh, yes, I saw that. Isn't that unbelievable? So that means that like next year when anybody who applies for Canada Summer Jobs Program, which is a lot of organizations, like they're going to have to explain how young people will be using AI in the job to make their job application more attractive. And then that, like, it sounds like the weird We Charity scheme all over again, actually, but this time with AI, which is even more sketchy.
Which is like, sorry, what are we doing? Why would we be ham-fisting people to like make sure that youth are using AI when the AI companies who are developing AI don't even have like a consistent way that AI is going to work or a consistent reason for using it? We don't even know what they're referring to when they're talking about AI. Are they talking about large language models? Are we talking about making like weird videos using Sora? Oh, wait, that was like a program that only existed for a little bit and then ChatGPT shut it down because they don't know what they're doing yet. They don't know what they're doing yet. This is a business and a sector that hasn't really proven itself. And so we've just said, hey, as a country, we don't want to miss out. Like, here is millions of dollars that is going to go to this sector. Like, if these companies can prove that they're using AI, can prove that they are trying to like push AI forward or AI literacy or whatever, then they're going to get money from the government, despite the fact that we have no idea what any of these things are going to be used to do. And if they do end up eliminating jobs and harming people, or I don't know, encouraging people through the issues we've heard about medically, AI psychosis, how this is affecting youth, and so on. If that's a problem, we'll deal with that. Those details will come when there's an argument in the House where it belongs, because that's where details always come at question period.
Yeah, Jamie Poisson, what do you know? Trying to explain things to Minister of Fake Smarts. You know what? I was in Regina last week, as I said, and I actually found an advance copy of Evan Solomon's first book that he wrote. He actually wrote a novel.
Oh, did you read it?
I didn't read it. I considered buying it, but it was a little too expensive to buy, like just as a joke. But let me tell you what the title of this thing is. His book is called Crossing the Distance, a novel. And I don't know if it's just because it's an uncorrected proof or not, but the front cover is literally him with his arms crossed.
Oh, that's strange.
Super, super strange. Yeah. So, okay, yeah, like what are we doing here? What the hell is the point of all of this? While I was in Regina, I was part of a day-long discussion and thinking through session, I guess, on AI and the labor movement and unions and how unions are regulating AI within their own structures. And it was really, really interesting. And one of the delegates said something that I really thought was a smart way of thinking about this technology, which is that AI is like the first major technological advancement where people aren't jumping to use it because it's so amazing. In fact, people are not using it because it is not amazing. And so rather than having us all like beg for more because we love how convenient or how wicked this new technology is, they are actually having to impose it on us because we can all tell that it's like maybe useful for like one or two things, but it is not going to take over like 99% of the work that we do, or maybe even any of the work that we do. And I think like if we think about it like that, in addition to how like it's also just kind of like another crack for tech fascism to just barge right through, it's pretty unbelievable. And when you say that this isn't really an AI strategy, I think that is so like important to really highlight, because it's like, what are you doing to develop this? Oh, you're throwing money at the private sector. What are you doing to teach people this? Oh, you're going to mandate universities to offer a first-year course in AI, which is like, are you kidding me? Like, isn't there something called like academic freedom? Shouldn't universities decide this for themselves? Like, okay. Of course, no details. We don't know what that actually means. And it's kind of crazy watching them pour all this money into the private sector when it should be poured into universities that are already using large language models and compute and AI to study things and develop things and understand things more. It's like, I don't think Canadians want their doctor using AI note taking if it's going to make their doctor make more mistakes because they're not actually like hand to brain keeping track of stuff. I don't really want to hear that the health system's in crisis because there's too much paper and bureaucratic stuff that doctors have to do, and so therefore they need AI. It's like, no, then back up the bureaucracy. What the hell have we allowed things to turn into? And that's what I keep hearing. In the labor discussion, of the unions using AI, which is not all of them, and I actually don't even think it was a majority, but it was a sizable minority. They are using it majoritively for taking minutes of their meetings and note taking. And it's like, why would you be sharing your secret union documents with tech fascists? Like, are you kidding me? And all for what? So that someone doesn't have to spend, 20 minutes in developing the minutes? Like, minutes don't have to be exhausted. This is not a transcript of, we're not keeping transcripts here, folks. Like, maybe we should be, reflecting on why we think we need this in the first place. What problems are we pretending to solve here? And from what I can see of the federal government's AI strategy, the problem is how does the government force more AI onto us so that the private sector can suck more money out of all of us individually, out of our public institutions, as they impose AI on us in all these different, completely useless ways.
Yeah, the really interesting thing about the conversation between Jamie Poisson and Evan Solomon was that Jamie would bring up like an example of AI failing in like the health sector. Okay, she's like, you've named in your AI strategy that you want to like pump AI into the health sector. It's like one of their priorities. Here's an example where AI has failed and it's like harmful to people. What's your response to that? Like, how does the AI strategy talk about that? And then Evan Solomon would go, yeah, but have you seen where it's working well? Have you seen where it's done
Shut
good
up.
things? like you're the government. Like, you're supposed to protect people, right? Like, I don't need you to be a propagandist for these companies that are trying to sell their product. And so when they talk about it, yeah, they're going to be like, here's the great things that it can do for health. We have no way of double checking that because so far as I can tell, again, like there's a lot of discussion about how like the internal mechanisms of how some of this technology works. Even the people who are building it don't really understand, right? Like, so there's not a way to double check it. And like it is very concerning that the response to here's an identified problem with this technology that you want to like move full steam ahead with is, yeah, but can we just turn away from the problems and focus on what are the potential solutions that haven't been proven yet? The other thing that I think that I thought was like really strange about this strategy is there's no discussion about like security or policing, right? Because so much of this, like where we're really going to see it taken up is in the military, is in policing, and in surveillance. It's the techno-fascist stuff that you just talked about, and it's nowhere in here. We have seen already how that can really harm people. There's all sorts of reports of the way that that this type of technology can be used to harm particular communities, to enact an anti-Black agenda, to enact a white supremacist agenda, and to support military exercises all over the world, right? And there's like nothing in here about that at all, which doesn't make any sense. Like, we are talking about an AI strategy, and the government is saying they're going to offer free courses to people, free entry-level courses on AI literacy using a national AI literacy initiative. And they're going to work with CEGEPs and colleges and universities to do it. And it's like, well, I'm glad that we've identified that free education is important. But free education on what? What are you talking about? What does it mean to be AI literate when this technology changes every 5 seconds and new things are announced, none of which have like a clear, again, problem that they're trying to solve? It's just like vibes, and I'm sure this will be useful in the future.
Maybe. Well, hopefully our friends will make money. Like, this is the thing. Like, first of all, you have like Evan Solomon literally lost his job at the CBC for being a corrupt guy. Like, for shady art dealing while he was also hosting CBC shows. So right off the bat, we have a questionable guy. And I think that you're right to highlight the military and policing, especially given, aside from AI, those are the only other two areas that Carney has been pouring money into. Like, this is like the idea that this isn't, that this has no connection to the military and the military spend promised to NATO is completely Pollyannish. Of course, these things are connected. Like, what does the state want AI so badly for? Mass surveillance, facial recognition, literally just, watching, like dealing with huge amounts of data that they're able to glean off of us. There are no guardrails in place at all. And they're like, our priority is to teach Canadians. It's like, as you said, teach Canadians what? How not to fall in love with a chatbot? Like, is that what we're talking? While you're also pouring money into companies to create more AI chatbots? Like, it's the wheels are fully off on this issue, and you can see it because these announcements are completely incomprehensible. Like, AI cannot save people time and energy and make certain jobs redundant while also creating 250,000 jobs. Those two things cannot happen at the same time. So what is it? Are you lying to us, or do you have some sort of incredible analysis that just hasn't been released? And that analysis has to include some sort of plan, because you cannot have today to 5 years from now and say plus 250,000 jobs without a plan. Like, that's got to be based on something. And so here I am wondering, Carney, having lived in the UK where mass surveillance is an enormous problem, and where he's defending contracts with companies like Palantir, and where he refuses to actually criticize Israel and their crimes, their war crimes, which include the sophisticated use of AI. Like, this says to me that we are in for a world of pain from AI being used against us, not in the ways that we're being told that AI right now is dangerous, like, a lack of creativity and causing hallucinations, which are all true and things that we should be concerned of. But actually, what's really happening is they're creating the structures like right under our nose for the mass data grabbing and data analysis of average people. And I think that should be like really triggering us into mobilizing. And it should be like, I mean, like, Evan Solomon shouldn't be able to walk around anywhere without people yelling at him for a plan. What the hell are you planning to do here? Because if you're going to send hundreds of millions and eventually billions of dollars, obviously, to these private corporations, what is our return on investment in this? Oh, we're just going to get surveyed more? That seems like a weird thing for us to consent to.
I just have to read this one sentence from the strategy that I like, just the announcement that I just gives you a sense of like how nothing this all is. Okay, so this is a key action that Canada will take in making AI, creating AI as an opportunity, and like in its worker, what are they calling it? They're calling it a pro-worker AI technologies, in developing pro-worker AI technologies, okay? Canada will accelerate AI adoption across female-dominated sectors, most exposed to early disruption through the existing women's program, unlocking new economic opportunities, softening transition shocks, and confronting AI-fueled online abuse that disproportionately targets women.
Okay, sorry, that actually sounds like AI wrote it. That doesn't make any sense.
It does sound like AI wrote it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like female-dominated industries, like they're not the ones that are most at risk of economic shocks at all. They're not the most vulnerable of anything. They're not the ones that are most vulnerable to emerging technologies. Those are the service industries. Those are the industries where you need someone to physically do something for someone. The most at-risk jobs for technological advancement are resource extraction and manufacturing. Like,
yeah,
wow,
so it
that's
says
in
that,
the plan,
like,
eh?
did you catch that at the end? It just kind of like switched to talking about online abuse that disproportionately targets women. It's like the beginning of the sentence is about jobs dominated by women. And at the end of the sentence is like, by the way, we're also going to protect you from the ways that that AI can be used to target you. And it's just like, you can't really shove all of those concepts into one sentence unless you are written by AI, which I expect a lot of this was. You know what I would love to see in an AI strategy? Like
A definition of AI?
something where a definition of AI would be really great. Like, what are we talking about here? But something where the government is taking a look at some of the ways that this has been really harmful and coming up with a strategy that is going to protect us from that, or make sure that we don't, as like a country, have to experience that en masse. Making sure that we have tools available to us to protect ourselves from the ways that that AI, whatever that means, is being used to harm our communities. I'd love to see something in here about some of the research that's coming out about how use of these technologies is really harming like our brain function, and our ability to think critically. Like, what are we going to do to make sure that that's not something that kids, people who are in the K-12 system, who are in colleges and universities, or who are even just like working their regular jobs, have to deal with at a time when the economy is like demanding that people have a job, a part-time job, a gig, and maybe like some other thing that they're trying to do on the side. Like, how do we make sure that people are protected from using these things, which could be dangerous for their like brains, from feeling like they have no other choice but to use these things in that kind of economy? Like, where is that in the strategy? I want to see that. And it's not like, that would be a strategy from a government that cares about its people, rather than a strategy from, I don't know, a business that's looking to invest in a new sector and doesn't want to miss out, which is really how this, like, that's what it feels like, what this rollout feels like.
Yeah, totally. And I just think of like my own kids and how I'm seeing AI end up in their lives at school. I mean, there's a lot of teachers that use AI, which it makes me want to cry, but I also have seen like some of the reading lists in high school right now, and that also makes me want to cry. So there's like a general de-skilling problem, I think, and like that we have to deal with. But I mean, like, the thing that I'm afraid of driving them nuts the most is that they like watch these AI videos that are so bad that are like literally they'll get to like the number like 911, and they'll, instead of saying 911, it'll be like 911, so you can tell that, or they'll say like 911 so you can tell that it's AI doing it. And it's just like, it really concerns me that the internet is awash with just this, as we keep saying, slop, like this garbage. And it's just it like, it's perfectly tuned to be kind of catchy enough, short enough, so that if you're bored within 4 seconds, you're getting another video of the exact same quality and another video of the exact same quality. And it's like, that is the problem. Like, this nonstop access to our feeds with absolutely no regulations and absolutely no safety controls. And I don't mean safety from like bad stuff, or safety from like, you know, kids being exposed to bad actors. I just mean like the safety of one's sanity, you know? It's nowhere. And like, all of this is happening while the federal government has announced that they are going to tell the CRTC to stop requiring foreign streaming platforms to fund local news and niche broadcasters. So it's like they are going backwards in what is actually necessary and what Canadians actually want and actually need. And they're telling us, oh, actually, this new technology is so great that you're going to have 250,000 jobs. Don't ask us how. Like, I know they think that we're stupid, but I can't believe that they are that stupid. There's too much stupidity happening here.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway. There's a lot of stupidity happening here.
Well, I guess it is artificial intelligence. So the clue is in the name.